Hello, my name is Rabia, and with me are Mark Ramnauth and Ed Plumacher. Ed and Mark are both visually impaired, and they live, work, and enjoy full lives in New York. Mark, you have your own business, and you're involved with AccessQuest. Tell us a little more about it.
Well, I have Stargardt's disease, which is a form of eye condition that affects the retina and causes me to be legally blind. So for the past 25 years, I've been doing a variety of professional work that involves people with disabilities. My career has been dedicated to helping people improve the way they work, the way they live, the way they learn, and the way they socialize despite their disability. For that, we use a lot of assistive technology. Recently, I attended a conference and I met Ed Plumacher, and he was presenting with someone else discussing how smartphones can be accessed by visually impaired folks. I afterwards was moved and I decided that it's time to get a smartphone, although I was afraid of using a phone that I could not feel buttons on. I eventually selected the iPhone for many reasons, but because the voice-over feature that speaks is built into the phone, it is much more versatile and currently the strongest screen reader on a smartphone. So I have now been using the iPhone, and I'm able to very easily use my phone to texting, emailing, and all the basic functions that most people use their smartphones for without being able to see the screen. By the use of finger gestures, these phones can work remarkably. I can actually use a camera because it'll tell me what's going on in the picture that the camera is taking. I use the phone as my radio. It's a very powerful alarm clock. It can set the time for, if I say I want to wake up in 25 minutes, it'll wake me up in 25 minutes. If I say set the calendar for 30 days, it'll figure that out. It'll set it for me. I use it for reminders. I use it for notes. I use it, of course, to access the internet. The phone is just as powerful, and you're really not limited. There's an amazing dictation feature, and you can speak to the phone and it'll type what you want it to. I've been using it recently to do even presentations. This phone has become my personal assistant and has improved every aspect of my life. I decided that it's so important, this technology. It's perhaps the most liberating assistive technology for people with disabilities, and especially people with vision impairments, that I teamed up with Ed, and we are combining our talent to see how we can distribute this to people who are visually impaired anywhere they live for free.
So Ed, tell us a little more about yourself and how you got together with Mark to start AccessQuest.
Well, like Mark, I too have a genetic eye disease and am legally blind. I have retinitis pigmentosa. While I was diagnosed at an early age as a teenager, I was able to go on to normally go to high school and college, and because it really didn't affect me until I was in my early 30s. So I've spent the last 30 years of my life in business, and I worked in professional sports for live television productions and doing database management and technology for various governing bodies for major sporting entities. Doing that was very rewarding. It was very exciting, but also very demanding. So as things progressed with my loss of vision, productivity became an issue for me. I had founded a company, so I was able to have people or employees help me out and deal with that. But eventually, my vision loss got to be too much to keep up with the demanding schedule that I had. So I was forced into retirement in my late 40s. From there, I did the normal acclimation period, adjusting to vision loss. The aspects were very different, though, because having left work where it was very productive, I didn't realize that when I stopped working, I also lost my support network, so I was not able to deal with everything on a daily basis. But I hooked up with the local support groups. I went through the Commission for the Blind here in New York State. They gave me some training, so I started my mobility and different aspects of learning how to use computers and everything with assistive technology for the first time. it was slow, it was tedious, it was quite boring at times as well. And then the iPhone came along, and that was a real game changer for me, because in a matter of days, I was able to get back to a productive level that I had been at previously. It was only maybe 3 or 4 weeks after I had my iPhone that I was asked to do a co-presentation for smartphone technology at a conference, which Mark attended. And Mark had come up and introduced himself to me shortly after the presentation, and he said he thought that it would help him in his business and his business life. So we got together a few weeks later, and from there we just, he had decided to get the iPhone. It dramatically changed his productivity in his life, and I know what it did for mine, and we just decided that we needed to do something with this. We needed to help other people get the iPhone and learn how to use it, because there really is not a lot of training material out there. VoiceOver is a great aspect and feature in the phone, but it's a limited market for blind people. We don't represent a large portion of the population. So when I was looking for material, it just didn't exist, or it was long, it was tedious, it was, I can't sit down and listen to a 2-hour podcast or an 1.5-hour podcast of poor quality to come out with a few features that I need to do the work I need to do in a certain time. So Mark and I had gotten together, we said, let's do this. And we did it systematically. We got together, we put a focus group together. We contacted people in the blind community here in the New York area and Long Island area, and we ran focus groups out of this office here. And it was amazing that when people came in, we had people who had the phone for anywhere from a month to 7 or 8 months. And they all had different degrees of blindness and different degrees of vision or no vision at all. And it was amazing to see how little they knew about the phone. Even after having it for 6 months, they were still struggling with it. So we knew right away, yes, we're onto something. We have to work with this. So we got together and we said, all right, what are we going to do? So at first we had looked at a business model, and we realized that that really wasn't the thing to do, because people who are burdened with blindness are often also burdened financially, and it's just not something that's out there for them to be able to go out and just buy iPods or iPads or even the phones themselves. So we decided that we were going to build something that was going to be free and easily accessible to anyone who is blind anywhere in the world. So we knew we could use the web for distributing podcasts, which is what we came up with, audio podcasts, as the main means of distribution. From there, we could also distribute text files as well, so that they could download them and use them to be printed in Braille or to be read by their screen readers on their computers, which would assist them in learning how to deal with this. And it's been a great project. I mean, it's been something that our hearts are both in it. We're both legally blind. We both realize what it's done. We're both entrepreneurs, and we realize that we could take our talents and put it to good use and help people get productive, so that they possibly could go back to work, or empower their lives in other ways, or enrich their lives and keep them in a situation where they can communicate with friends and family and workers and coworkers. So that's how we got together.
Great. So how can a vision impaired person use a phone with so few buttons?
That's probably the biggest fear factor when somebody who's visually impaired thinks about the iPhone, and it was for me as well. I was fortunate a couple of years ago, I went to an RP social event, and when I got there, I was amazed at how many people who were there who were visually impaired or totally blind, a lot less vision than I had, and how they were able to use the iPhone. It was something that I had never looked at. I just had made the assumption that it was not for me. It was a piece of glass as far as I was concerned. It only has 5 tactile buttons or switches or anything on the phone. But what you do is you learn to reference where those are. A proper case most of the time will help you orient yourself as well. But VoiceOver is such a dynamic tool that it speaks to you all the time. So you only need a few finger gestures to really get moving on the phone. You touch the screen, it tells you where you are. It tells you what you're activating or what you're focused on. If that's not what you want, you can use some finger gestures to move left or move right, move up, move down, 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 finger movements. We'll get into more of those in more detail later. But the beauty of it too is if you get lost, you can always push the round button on the bottom, the home button. It always takes you back to the main screen. So it's not hard. It just takes some time. You do have to immerse yourself in it. It's a tool like anything else. It's like playing a musical instrument. The more time you put into it, the better you get at it, and the more rewarding the return is for you.
So cool. What about apps?
Apps. Well, the great thing about the iPhone is it comes standard with many apps that are very accessible for visually impaired and blind. But there are some very good ones out there that are free, and there are a lot of low-cost apps as well. One of my favorites is the Looktel Money Reader, which is a $9.99 app, but it allows you to just wave it over dollar bills, and it'll tell you if it's a 10, a 20, a 5, a 1. It's quick, it's easy, there's no lining up to take pictures or anything like that. It works really, really well. Tap Tap See is another great one for people who are blind, visually impaired. They're able to turn around and just snap a picture of an item if they don't know what it is, if they're home alone or in an office and can't find somebody to just assist them. And the phone will tell them what it is. It's Diet Coke as opposed to a regular Coke, or it's a certain item that they're not familiar with, whether it's a magnifying glass or a letter opener or something that they're not quite sure what it is. I particularly like some of the productivity apps. I use Dropbox, which is great because it allows me to interface my iPhone with my computer at work and at home. A lot of the work we do in the office here is all done on Windows-based products, and the iPhone allows me to be able to tap into those documents on the go and be very productive. So there's a lot out there. That's the beauty of iPhone being the first ones to come into the smartphone market. A lot of the app developers have developed great apps for people in general, and we have a jump on with the blind and visually impaired community for app development as well. So there are tens of thousands of apps, probably hundreds of thousands of apps, and there are hundreds of great apps for blind and visually impaired.
Wow, I didn't know this little phone could do so much.
Well, a decade ago, this would have been a dream to most people, and for the visually impaired, even more so. I remember used to be thinking that, wow, it would be so good if I can just have a notepad that would speak to me and a way to get to know all my contacts. And now I have this little device that's in my pocket that's a GPS, that's a compass, that's a calculator, that's a radio, that reads books to me, that's my reminder, and so much more. It has just revolutionized the way people with visual impairment could function, because you can get all access to this information by means of a voice coming out of the phone. And on top of that, the newer phones have Siri, so starting with 4S, you can actually speak to it. And Siri is sometimes confused with voiceover, but it's totally different function. With Siri, you can now tell the phone to do things for you, and you have even more powerful assistance. I often use it for saying things like, "Where am I?" And it would actually read the address for the location where I am. I sometimes have to do presentations, and I use my iPhone as a prompting device. It can even read PDF documents to me. So in many ways, it's even more powerful than the computer sitting at my desk.
I think a lot of folks will benefit from your free training. How can they get in touch with you?
Anyone who would like to get in touch with us to learn more can go to www.accessquest.org and learn more about how they can get our free tutorial. So what we recommend is that new users of the iPhone spend a weekend and use our modules from our website or from the Apple Store, and go through it and spend that weekend, and you will get to be familiar with your phone pretty fast. In a short period of time, within an hour of using the gestures, you'll be able to start accessing most of the features of the phone.
One finger flick right selects the item.
Ex-Rep. Lindy Boggs, advocate for women.
One finger flick left reverses the direction.
GOP aims to put women in office. 3 minutes, 49 seconds. Ex-rep. Lindy Boggs, advocate for women. Dedicated to family.
Double tap one finger activates the item.
2 minutes, 51 seconds. Politics. Back button.
Double tap with two fingers starts and stops an item such as phone calls and music.
5. Illusione di mi vita.
Two finger flick up reads the entire page.
Podcasts. Back button. Episodes. Heading. Share. Button. The Leonard Lopet Show from WNYC. More info. Button. Description. Leonard Lopet brings a diverse collection of great thinkers and talkers together for smart, unpredictable conversation.
Three fingers flick right takes you to the next page.
Home. Page 1 of 5. Phone. 8 new items.
Double tap with three fingers will turn voiceover off.
Speech off.
Triple tap with three fingers will turn the screen curtain on.
Screen curtain on.
Toggle to turn it off.
Screen curtain off.
Twisting two fingers activates the rotor.
Characters. Headings. Volume.
With the rotor on, flick up or down with one finger to change the volume.
100%. 95%. 90%. 85%. 80%. 85%. 90%. 95. 100%.
Two fingers scrubbed in the shape of an N goes back to the previous page.
Podcasts. Catalog. Button.